Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you came back. I'm glad that you found value last time. And for those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. So this is the second session in the Capitalizing on Uncertainty webinar series. And today we're going to dig deeper into how we can identify, understand, and solve the big problems that must be solved if we're going to successfully navigate these challenging times. By the way, if this is your first time joining us, let us know. Maybe put it in the chat if it's the first time joining us, and we'll send you the link to the first session, as well as all of the materials from the first session, so that you can have all the information and the tools at your disposal. Because we want you to be successful, and we want you to have all the information at hand. So if this is your first time, let us know, and we'll make sure to get the full webinar and the materials to you separately. So do that. Also, like last week, we will send you the slides and the worksheet with all of the questions. So that will really help you not just have a great webinar, but turn these concepts into action. So same as last week, we'll be happy to make the slide deck available, as well as the homework, as all the questions we're going through now. So you can just sit back, enjoy it, and start some fresh thinking here. So let's get back into the groove with a recap from last week. So you'll remember that step one is understanding our current state, getting our bearings and figuring out where we are so we know which direction we need to head. And we talked about getting our bearings by looking at our cash position, our customer position, our competitive position, and our company position. And from there, and understanding our current state and getting our bearings, we can figure out what are those key problems we must solve, and then what are the opportunities to maximize. So, for example, as Wayne mentioned on the chat, we looked at determining, are we profitable, and what is our cash runway? Because cash is king, and that's where most people get in trouble, is with their cash flow. So we need to really understand what our cash position is, our financial position. And we also looked at our customer position, understanding our customer base, whether it's growing, whether it's shrinking, what changes are we seeing in our customer behavior? Because very importantly, your customers' behavior and how they're responding to the economic challenges will impact your bottom line. So we need to be very aware of what's happening in the customer space. Also, we looked at our competitive position. We all may operate in the same industry, the same economy, maybe even the same city as our competition, but we may be in the same ocean, but we're not in the same boat. And that was a really key point last week, that how we choose to respond differently to the industry-wide disruption and the economic state will determine how fast we can pull ahead of our competition. You have the opportunity to behave differently to your competition, not to say, oh, we're all in the same boat. You're not in the same boat, you're in the same ocean, and you can outmaneuver your competition. And by attending today is one of the ways that you do that. Also, we talked about our company position and looking internally at what the current state of employee morale. Are your employees up for the challenge ahead? Do we need to shore them up somehow? And also importantly, looking at those suboptimal inefficiencies, those business processes or business teams that are not performing well. Because while suboptimal performances and inefficiencies and waste can be easily glossed over during the good times, when money's flowing in and it's cheap to borrow, when things are tight, these small things can be magnified and become the difference between making money and losing money. And from there, we looked at what are the problems to solve and opportunities to maximize. And so, as I like to ask people, where's the pain? Where's the biggest obstacles hindering our business? And then similarly, where's the opportunities to be realized? Where's the gold, the untapped or unknown potential that exists in our organization? You may recall that Fujifilm example, a beautiful example of an organization in a dying industry, film production, film development. They were in a dying industry. They dropped by 90% in 10 years, but they survived and they thrived because they looked at what was in their hands. They looked at where's the gold in our business? Where is that IP, the capabilities, and how does that relate to the emerging trends in different industries out there? And so they were able to pivot and change from a dying industry to growing industries such as pharmaceuticals, medical imagery, cosmetics, LCD screens. They were able to move because they looked at what was in their hands. Where's the gold? And we also said that we noted that during the turning the tide from downturn and doom and gloom and overcoming the economic and industry inertia is not a job for the B team. We need to have our SWAT team, our A players on this to really make sure that we get where we need to go, that we need to consider the size of the prize, the upside if we get our recession response right, and the consequences if we get it wrong. And that you want people with the mana to make things happen, and with a clear mandate and the time to focus and to deliver results fast. Because this is not a 5-year plan. This is tactical, this is urgent, and we want to move the needle as fast and as effectively as possible. So that's the recap. And today, we're going to look a bit deeper into how we can strengthen our financial position and fix the big problems that are holding our business back. So that's what we're looking at today. And you'll have some homework to help with this. So I encourage you to download that and use that. And you wonder, why do I have an emergency room picture here? If you've ever had first aid training, CPR training with St. John's or something like that, you may remember this very simple prioritization that when you come on a person in medical distress, they always say ABC. First, check the airway is clear. Next, check for breathing, and then check for circulation or pulse. They say airways, breathing, circulation, ABC. It's a simple and effective prioritization. Similarly, in navigating recession, the step one is strengthening your balance sheet, strengthening your financial position. Because as we said, cash is king. Cash flow is where too many businesses get in trouble. And a solid financial position, that's the platform from which we can launch our growth and recovery strategies. So we need to strengthen our financial position, as well as fix the other problems that are bleeding cash, bleeding customers, frustrating staff, and waste, all those waste and inefficiencies. So that's what we're focusing on today, fixing the big problems that are hindering our business performance. So let's start with some research. Recently, McKinsey & Co. did a study, and they looked at 2,000 companies from years 2007 to 2017, so the GFC and beyond. And they found that outperforming companies had what they called a through cycle mindset. These outperformers had a through cycle mindset, and they describe it as that they stay focused on their core purpose, their long-term strategy, and their growth plans, while they also temporarily adapt and flex to the economic realities of the day. So in the short term, they're willing to adjust their spending, reducing in some areas and ramping up in others, while safeguarding their innovation and their sales abilities. You don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They also took bold action. They weren't afraid of making those big bets when the growth strategy opportunities arose. Another thing that they did, and this is very key, this is what we're focusing on today, is that they aggressively, the through cycle mindset, the winners and the outperformers in the last recession, they aggressively freed up resources during the crisis enough to enable them to invest early in their own recoveries. They looked at when to grow, where to grow, and how to grow. So the biggest winners grew right through the downturn, but other outperformers managed to catch up by going hard in the first 2 years after recovery. As the business leaders I talked to have been through several recessions, they keep on telling me time and time again, don't take your foot off the gas. Continue to grow. If for some reason you have to, it's such that you have to temporarily stop during the downturn, get on it as fast as possible. Don't take your foot off the gas. Go hard in the first 2 years to really ramp up your growth. And then where to grow. And we talked a little bit about this last week. The through cycle outperformers reallocated resources to the less cyclical places of their existing business as well as moved into adjacent industries to find new opportunities. And then how to grow. And we've talked about this with the Bain research as well, and other research. Go beyond the natural organic growth. They pursued proactively mergers and acquisitions because there's deals to be had, bargains to be made here, new capabilities, new markets, new channels, and high growth sectors. So this is the kind of mindset we want to foster and we want to keep while we go through this recessionary period. Let's not take our foot off the gas. Let's keep focused on the long-term growth strategies while making the adjustments we need to make to match the current realities. So, so to strengthen our financial position, I'm going to go through 8 different steps that you can take to strengthen your balance sheet, to have a better, stronger financial position. Some may be obvious, some may not be on your radar, and they might be even in the back of your mind, but could be the difference between scraping by and bunkering down and just battening down the hatches and hoping for the best, and growing even through this recessionary period. So the first one we've mentioned briefly: cut costs to enable the redirection of resources to revenue generating activities. Do you know how your money is spent? What is actually revenue generating activities and non-revenue generating activities? As I tell people, when it comes to cost cutting, be a surgeon, not a butcher. Be a surgeon, not a butcher. Too many organizations use cost cutting as a blunt instrument. I want to just cut a 10% across the board or 15% across the board cost cutting, and they end up killing the golden goose. They hinder and they hamstring those activities that will increase revenue, those activities that will enable their ability to recover and grow the business. So yes, if you can reduce the non-revenue generating activities, then that's fantastic, but reallocate those and protect your sales ability and your innovation ability. And similarly, how effective is your spend? I think one example I can think of is looking at how effective your marketing is. Maybe shifting from less effective broadcast marketing or even Google ads to perhaps more targeted SEO, search engine optimization. So actually getting to the people who are wanting your services now rather than a general target market. So first step, cut cost in one place to reinvest in your growth and pursue those growth strategies in another place. Reducing debt. So listen, you may have already been in this exercise. Remember that we talked about last week that the winners through the last recession got their financial house in order and did their cost restructuring early. I encourage you to do that if you haven't already. But listen, reduce debt by prioritizing your debt repayments. So what's the highest interest rates or the shortest maturing loans? Let's try to knock those off. Or maybe refinancing existing debt. You probably have already locked in your lower interest rate terms, but if it's possible, you haven't done so already, try to refinance existing debt to better terms, better rates, better ways to pay there. Similarly, renegotiating your payment terms. So, trying to get better deals with your suppliers, with your creditors. Now, here's another interesting thing. Post-COVID, through COVID and even post-COVID, the demand for office commercial retail space has dropped. And so there's most likely an openness, and we're seeing this, that landlords are open to renegotiate. Even if you did this at the beginning of COVID or been a few years ago, and they may not have been open then, it's probably worth having a chat now to see how open the landlord might be to more favorable terms. So reducing debt where we can. This is a good one. Raise cash by selling non-core assets. Please note, I said non-core assets. All right. This could be real estate. Maybe you have an underutilized property, or your business has been land banking, waiting to build over there somewhere. This might be a good time to make withdrawal from that land banking, or selling patents, either outright or under license. If it's not core to your current strategy, then that might be a good revenue generator, selling patents. Selling a business unit that is no longer core to what you're doing anymore. an example of this is there's a food truck business, food truck and catering. It's actually in the States called the grilled cheese truck. Who knows? But the grilled cheese truck was a food truck business and catering business. And what they did is they recognized that they really catering is going to be more their focus, and catering is more profitable. The food, so they sold their profitable but not as profitable food truck business and invested that money in building out their catering business. So selling business units that are not core to what you're doing anymore may be a good way to raise funds. Another thing that we can sell to raise cash is excess capacity. I remember when I was in Air New Zealand, it's a little bit of a different story, but Air New Zealand, if you notice, when you fly out of the international airport, you have a flurry of activity in the morning and a flurry of activity in the afternoon, another flurry late at night. So what they would do is they would sell their excess check-in, ground handling capacity to other airlines. So when their flights died down, they would actually sell their services, their ground handling services, to other airlines, even their competition, and they change uniforms and everything, and raise money by selling their excess capacity at the airport. Similarly, what excess capacity, production capacity, or equipment do you have that you can sell? Or another way to do this is sublease. Do you have equipment that you could sublease, not sell outright, but maybe sublease to somebody else? Production capacity that you could do that as well, or office space. Because if you have less people showing up at the office, there might be somebody else who could use that office space, and you could generate some revenue from that. So raise cash by selling non-core, not core, non-core assets. Another way to strengthen your financial position is secure access to external financing. Listen, if the banks are not as helpful as they used to be, where else can we find the cash that we need? An example was one of our clients was over leveraged and had some kind of more high interest private loans. So what they did is they reached out to friends and family, and they were able to raise almost $500,000, so $500,000, which they were used to repay their expensive debt, improving their cash flow. So what are the external financing that we can avail ourselves to? Private equity back, if you do have a relationship with your bank, fantastic. Alternative financing. Where can we get the cash we need to keep going in a strong and effective way? A diversification of growth options. Well, what does that mean? Well, bottom line is, where else can we grow that we're not currently growing in? So where are the new regions, the new distribution channels, new products, new markets, new customer base, licensing your IP, partnering with other businesses that we can diversify our growth options. An interesting example of this is Xero, Xero. You may use them. They are a very successful New Zealand general software company. They sell, it's pretty much a general ledger and accounting, a simple accounting software that's targeted at the small business market. And they actually did several things to diversify. First of all, they expanded out of New Zealand over to the US and Australia and now worldwide. So they expanded into new markets. That's one diversification. Another thing they did was they acquired other companies that offered complementary services, such as payroll processing, such as project management. And a third thing they did was they diversified their channels to market. Xero doesn't go really directly to the small business owner. What they did is they went to the small business owner, but they also went to the accountants that serve small business owners. And that's how they blew up their expansion, but it was by partnering and expanding their channels to market through these accounting firms. And another thing they did was they became a platform in themselves. The last time I checked, there are over 400 partners in this ecosystem. These are other complementary services like time sheeting, time and attendance, other reporting that either bolt on to Xero or are easily integratable with Xero. So you might see, if you've been looking for like maybe a job management tool or a inventory tool, what they'll say, hey, we integrate with Xero. Fantastic. So Xero has become a platform, very easily integratable, and they have an ecosystem that has made them more useful to businesses by partnering, and makes them more sticky. So people are less likely to get rid of Xero because it's so integrated with what they do. So diversifying your growth options might be something that you may have not have thought about, but we can actually look into further. So lowering fixed costs, you might have already started this exercise, but perhaps making costs variable rather than fixed by, again, renegotiating with suppliers or leases. Another big thing is using more freelancers on a project basis. We'll talk about that in a further slide. But another thing you might want to consider is, in these times, consider zero-based budgeting. Don't just roll over when you're doing your financial planning for this coming year. Don't just roll over last year's budget and just automatically plunk it into this year's budget. Do a little bit deeper and take a hard look, start from zero, and justify what we will spend money on and why. What's the benefit of spending money here versus there? What's the ROI on that? How will this dollar spent over here help us in our growth strategies? Because as you take a zero-based approach and justify where the money is being spent, you might find that that you can reallocate, and what was necessary or true last year or the year before may not be true, and we can reallocate the money into those growth strategies. Another lever there is focusing on recession resilient customers. Last week, we talked about the dangers of relying on a few main customers, and also about how looking at how the recession is affecting our clients, right? Because their behavior, how it's affecting them, will affect you. So if you have customers that are highly susceptible to recession, who are struggling, see how you might grow into your business into more recession-proof clients like government or utilities, healthcare. What industries are less affected by the current downturn, and how can we shift into those client bases? And this is a tough one. This is probably the most emotionally charged, challenged. It's never easy, but sometimes when things change, we have to make that tough call, and we either cut some staff now, or if we don't, we might have to cut all the staff and lose our business later if we're not willing to make those calls. I know it's not easy. It's pretty much the last resort if you can, but it's best if it needs to happen. It needs to happen, and it's best to do a single cut once rather than round after round after round of layoff, where people never feel really safe and they're always wondering whether they get caught in the next layoff. I'd experienced myself when I worked for a company over in the States. It was a large company, but the economy turned, and I was actually caught in redundancy round number 3. So we're all waiting. Oh, I made it this time, but oh man, what about next time? So if you can, make that deep cut once that you need to make, and then once that's made, reassure the staff and support the staff who are left, and help them to be certain of their future there, and help them help you to grow. Another great way to reduce the need for full-time staff is outsourcing. Listen, you'll be amazed at the gig economy is booming, and what you can get in the gig economy. So even interim, fractional, executive support. So question, if you lose somebody, like if that head of product development leaves, do you need to really replace that full-time COO, CIO, head of this department? Or can you use a fractional, a virtual executive for a short period of time for a little extra horsepower where and when you need it? So look for the gig economy. Where can we bolster our team without having to bring on that fixed term or that fixed cost? And another one, dare I say it, It's another tough decision, and you really have to weigh up the pros and cons on this one. But offshoring, offshoring some services might be, a lever that you can pull as well. So I've known some companies have done this with varying success. Some people find it successful, some people don't. So you really need to weigh it up. But that could be a temporary solution for dealing with staff challenges there. So this is a really helpful slide. Courtesy of Uli. Uli did a fantastic webinar back in October called Managing Finances in Times of Uncertainty. If you didn't catch it, I encourage you to go to our resources page and give it a listen. Some very good information there. And one of the things he challenged in that was, which of these 7 levers can you improve? Even if by 1%, what impact would that make? For example, one way to reduce cost and improve your gross margin might be to look at who's doing what. Do you have, and think about your business, do you have high cost staff doing low value activities? Do you have your skilled technicians doing low value manual labor? And if so, can these tasks be reallocated from the high cost, high value potential people to lower cost team members, or even outsource to free up the higher cost staff to do higher revenue generating activities? I remember an example of this when I was working at a boutique project management consultancy a while ago. One of the directors, one of our senior consultants, was spending hours trying to fix his PC. He was trying to be a tech support person and doing it very poorly. So I had to challenge him on this. I said, why are you spending so much time being a very poor tech support person when rather than you could be out there billing, doing your job as a senior consultant, and in the time you're taking to try to fix your PC, you could have made enough to buy 3 of those PCs to replace the one you're tinkering with? What are people doing? What is high value activity versus low value activity? High cost resources versus low cost resource? Can we improve our gross margin by looking at that and these other levers as well? So a side note on this, question for you, and think about this. Those 7 levers there, are these numbers already on your radar? Are they front and center of your reporting regime? If so, fantastic. You can identify your baseline of where they are now for comparison, and then establish your cadence for how we're going to report on that. If you don't have a handle on these 7 levers, then find out how to get this information and establish your starting point for your improvements. That's where your improvements begin. So this is with your homework this week. Go through these questions we went through, these 8 actions you can take, as well as the 7 levers. And I encourage you, really investigate, really interrogate these numbers, challenge assumptions, because your assumptions might be based on 2-year-old behaviors that are no longer accurate today. And look at these 8 actions and the 7 levers. What options hold the most potential to strengthen your cash position? How can we make that 1% or 1-day change in those 7 levers? Think about it just a moment. What difference can these actions have on your financial position? Remember, and this is very key, this is not a 5-year plan. This is urgent. This is tactical. Look at and ask the question, what improvement can we make? If we focus on this, what improvement, how much can we move the needle can we make in the next 30 days, in the next 90 days? If you're able to change these things and take these actions, what will your balance sheet look like 90 days from now? It's urgent, it's tactical. How can we turn the ship now? How can we aggressively free up resources to invest in our own recovery, to fund the growth initiatives we need to fund? That's what I want you to focus on with the homework this week. So we've looked at strengthening your financial position. Let's look at solving the big problems hindering the business, right? Because it's hard to raise cash and strengthen your financial position when this is what's going on. It's hard to strengthen it when your cash bucket is leaking. And we really need to deal with those internal problems, those inefficiencies, those hindrances that are leaking money, that are losing you customers, that are frustrating and wasting the time of our teams. And while we might have been able to put up with it during the boom years, these will be magnified during the challenging years. And you, as a business owner, don't want to be running a race like this guy, bogged down, dragging a heavy burden of processes that don't work, of business units that are not performing as we need them to perform, that processes and things that take too long, that cost too much, that slow us down. We need to solve these big problems. So, fixing the broken processes. Now, let's first ask the question of a customer interaction. How do your customers interact with you? Notice a slight difference. I didn't ask, how do you interact with your customers? Because we need to look at things from the customer's perspective. We need to look at it through their lens, through their experience. And we actually want to map our customer's journey. Tell us about those interactions. Where does it start? Where does the journey with your customer journey start? What are those processes and what happens before they come in? And what are those interactions and processes that are involved through the end-to-end journey of the customer? What caused them to pick up the phone to call you? And what are the steps along the way of those the customer journey? And also, what are the moments of truth, those key interactions or decision points that we must live and die by, in which customers measure their experience? How effective are we in acting, and how do we act in these moments of truth? How can we make them better? As I often ask my clients, how can we make it easier for customers to do business with us? How can we make it a better experience for customers to do business with us? I'll share an example I just heard of 2 weeks ago. It's a 5-star accommodation and dining facility. You would have seen them on the TV, right? They have an online booking system for their dining facility, but you can only book tables for parties of four people. If it's more than 4, it throws up, their online booking system throws up an error. And so if you call them, it goes to an answering service. So anybody with more than a table of 4 will get frustrated on the online. They'll call somebody, get frustrated. So what they're telling me is that nobody at this 5-star facility can pick up a phone and talk to their customers. And I know of bookings that were lost, a 12-person party because of this, because they failed at the moments of truth. They failed at those places where the customers are interacting or trying to interact with them. So business walked out the door. What are the processes? What is the customer journey with your business? How do they interact with you? What are those moments of truth that we must get right to tip the decisions toward your business rather than away from your business? Also, look at your internal interactions. Check your fundamentals of how your business is run. What are the areas of your business that are not performing well? Is it your sales process? Is it conversion rate? Is it fulfillment? Is it your operations? Is it your supply chain? Is it post-sales support? What areas are not working well? Are those big weights that you're trying to drag as you're running a race? If you don't mind, I'm going to brag on Grant here. Grant will be joining us for our Q&A session. So I encourage you, put some questions in that Q&A. But he was with a client, and it was this client had multi-million dollars in revenue, right? And he just asked the client, tell me about, let's check the fundamentals. Tell me about your sales process. How do you get business? How does business come in for you? And the client, he said, look, it's mainly inbound phone calls. People who need our services, they call us and they talk to one of our salespeople. We have a pretty good conversion rate with those salespeople, and that's how we make money. And he said, well, what's the answer rate there? So, well, about 50% of the calls we get, the other 50% go over to an answering service. And tell me about the answering service. Well, unfortunately, by the time we respond to that answering service, they get the message and return the phone call, a lot of the sales are lost, and we have a much lower conversion rate for people who roll over to the answering service. It's the people who pick up the phone live. However, when the light bulb went on in that discussion, and the client realized that rolling over the calls to the answering service was costing his business hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost sales, how long do you think it took them to find another person to be on the phones to make sure that no calls went over to the answering service? They got it pretty quick. It was just realizing where this process was broken, and a simple solution would turn around their revenue in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because they looked at their fundamentals, what internal processes were not working, what was costing them money, what was costing them time. So you say, that's great. Thanks for that, Chris. I'm motivated now. How do I find out? Well, remember that you have in your building a team of experts and who know exactly how your business is run and what your customers are saying. It's called your staff. And remember that your team are the experts in how it's running, what your customers are saying. They're the coal face interacting directly with customers. They will hear things, see things, and know things that don't get up to the senior level. They don't get around the SLT table. So your team are the experts in how your business is running and what your customers are saying. So ask them. Ask them. It doesn't have to be a very complex exercise. It can be as simple as a chat over coffee in the break room. It can be as simple as a team meeting or whiteboard ideas here on the wall in a whiteboard marker, or using the free Survey Monkey tool to ask for their feedback. And this could be some very simple questions, and these will be in the homework as well. So ask your team, what are the biggest pain points or frustrations that you encounter in your job? What are the frustrations that you are hearing from our customers? Because remember, a customer complaint is also an opportunity for improvement and opportunity, maybe even for innovation. So what are the frustrations you're hearing from our customers? What tasks are the most time-consuming or require many steps to complete? What information would help you do your job better? What opportunities do you see and how we can improve our business? What knowledge, systems, processes are unique to us, intellectual property, are unique to us, and how might we turn this into IP, this IP into a product or a service? We'll look more about that in innovation. And our guest Q&A panel is Greg, will have some good insights to share on that as well. Listen, don't underestimate the knowledge in your organization already. These are powerful questions that can unlock the solutions to your underperforming business. It enables you to tap into the power of your team and give you insights and ideas of how to solve the big problems in your business. If I can borrow from Cyclone Gabriel, leveraging your internal experts will enable you to remove the slash that is blocking the rivers of revenue in your business and rebuild the bridges of business success. Had to go there, sorry. So another thing you can do is study your customer. Study your customer, develop that extreme customer focus. Ask your customer, what are the pain points or frustrations of dealing with us? What are your big headaches or challenges of doing business with us? Here's another fun question. What does our competition do better than us or worse than us? What is your biggest headache as a business owner that you just wish somebody would sort out? Oh, this is such a pain. I wish somebody could sort this out. That's an unmet customer need. Listen into those things. You could also involve your customer, observe what they do. Say, look, I'd love to see kind of how you use our product in your business. Can I walk the floor with you? Can I maybe do a ride along? Map that customer journey. You can even involve your customer in the ideation and product development. An example of this was when I was at Air New Zealand, I did looked at a baggage product, and we actually had one of our product design experts ride along with a family of 4 flying from Auckland to Queenstown. And he rode along, met them at their house, watch them check, watch them pack their bags, get in the taxi, ride the taxi, check in, drop off the bags, fly down to Queenstown, get out of there, go to the hotel and unload their bags. They rode along, observing, asking questions, learning how to improve. So my challenge to you, because this is where solutions and innovation can come from, how well do you listen to your customer feedback and take action? How fast do you take action? How well do you study your customer? Can you get a PhD in your customer's business and behaviors? Think of the insights that you'll gain that your competition won't if you just study your customer, if you have that extreme customer focus. It'll help you fix the problems and improve those moments of truth we talked about. And it also may be where you can discover unmet needs and opportunities for innovation. So a couple of tools that will help you with this. You might have heard about the 5 whys. 5 is anecdotal. Ask why. If you see a behavior, why is the customer behaving this way? Why is this problem here? Just keep on asking the question until you get to the root cause. And once you get to the root cause and ask, you can work your way back up to validate, saying, when this happens, does that happen? Okay, then when this happens, does that happen? The 5 whys, asking why something happens or why customers behave a certain way until you get to the root cause. Another fun one is from a more beautiful question, and we'll talk about more of this next week, is that the question is from Warren Berger, great book. His premise is that questions drive creativity and stimulate new ideas. They also tell us what we don't know. And he recommends that we ask these 3 questions: why, what if, and how. Why helps us to go deeper for understanding. Asking what if kind of opens that potential, that opportunity, that inspiration. It's almost like saying, dream with me. What if we could do that? And then how puts it into action. He has a good example of this is a guy named Edwin Land. He was a scientist, and back in the 20s, he took his daughter on vacation and took a photo at the Yosemite Park, and the daughter wanted to see the photo. And so he had to explain to her that, sorry, you can't see the photo now, honey. We've got to finish taking the pictures on the roll of film. We need to send it out to be processed. They have dark rooms and chemicals. And then one day we'll get them back and I can finally show you. But Edwin Land asked the question, why? Why does it have to be that way? What if we could have a dark room inside the camera? And that's how Polaroid was born. Another example is Netflix. The co-founders of Netflix asked the question, why do we have to pay late fees for my DVD rentals? What if video rentals were more like a gym membership? And that's how Netflix was born. It was actually started as a mail-in order where you went online to pick your videos and then they sent you one and then back. So they were able to get this started even before streaming. So Steve Jobs was asked why he had been so successful, and that was his answer there. Throughout the years in business, I found something, which is I always asked why we're doing things the way we're doing them. Team, this is a powerful question. Why? What if? How? That can really change the course for your business if you start asking these questions and challenging current thinking. So this is your homework for this week. Identify where the smart cuts are, where you can reinvest. Look at those 7 levers and examine how you might improve each of those. Identify the top 3 actions that will help you improve your financial position. And then let's look at those wasteful drags on your business and how we can sort those out and get your SWAT team on it. Remember, this is tactical, this is urgent. We want the best team on it, and we want to see what results can we make in 30 days and 90 days. How can we start acting now to turn the ship? So with that, I will introduce our Q&A panel. And we have Greg Burgoyne, and he's worked in multiple kind of corporations and nonprofits. His background is in copywriting, marketing, and the interesting thing and why we have him on board today is he brings a systematic approach to learning and scaling business. And he has his own business, been doing this for past 2.5 years, and it's going well. And also very happy to have one of our strategic advisors, Grant Stapleton. He's got a track record of helping businesses turn around from, being the Mr. Turnaround for the past 30 plus years. And one of the things I love about Grant, is that he's one of those people that, although he has a quiet and calm demeanor, when he speaks, he's worth listening to. So I'm looking forward to seeing what questions we can go through today and getting their expertise. So with that, I'll turn it over. We should be able to get the Q&A panelists. I encourage you, put some questions in the Q&A chat and we'll go for it. So with that, I'll turn over to Greg. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, happy to. And thank you, Chris, for that presentation. I was taking notes. I've got them all down here and some key things to be able to apply. So thank you for that. Yeah, so I am currently working helping people to productize their IP and helping them turn that into a systemized video format. And that can be, I've been doing that for 2.5 years. I was going to get into a bit more about it, but I'll leave that for any Q&A. Been doing that for 2.5 years. And yeah, I've been really enjoying that. And a bit of my background is that I started out studying law and commerce, found out that it didn't involve people as much. And then now I get to work with people to work out the impact they want to make and productize that. So we started the business during COVID. So one of those necessity businesses, but also moved down to Nelson. And so been building from down here.
Excellent. Oh, thank you for that. So one of the questions we want to start out with is, how have you seen clients turn their specific know-how or intellectual property into a sellable product? And what's the key to being able to identify this potential?
Yeah, well, if I just, from your presentation, Chris, if I just wind it back a little bit, the part that I thought this connected well in with was looking at your, if you're cutting costs and then looking for revenue generating activities, is being able to work out if turning IP into a course is a good way to be able to get some other revenue generating activities. And that could either be for lead generation, so having a course that people can take that then becomes a step between not knowing, liking, and trusting you and then becoming a customer. So being a lead generation asset. The other thing would be creating an asset that people actually purchase, so having a different revenue stream. And then the other thing would be using productizing IP for internal systems. So something like the onboarding of staff. And you mentioned where having your high expense people doing low cost tasks. And I spoke in an organization a little while ago where they had all their top people onboarding and training new staff, and they were growing, but the training was very haphazard and it was different depending on the energy levels of the director or the person that they got at any given time. They didn't have standardized training or standardized customer experience across the organization because everyone was getting different training. So just saying there's different areas you can apply it to, whether it's marketing, whether it's a product to sell, or whether it's internal systems. And then in terms of the process, it's normally working out, like you said, putting yourself into the customer's shoes and looking at the customer journey and saying what part of this process would be enhanced by something that they could access and go through without me. Mm-hmm. So often it's identifying, where are you saying the same things again and again? Or where would you be saying the same things again and again? That the real value is not in the fact that you're saying it, but the real value is the fact that it's being said at all and being taught. And so those are normally that's a good place to start. And then I encourage people to have the fastest path to validation, which is basically not creating anything. So holding off on creating anything, actually going to the customers, having conversations. And like you said, having conversation, I talk about often doing a value exchange conversation. So in exchange for a phone call, giving something of value to them and ask them current state, desired state, problems, why they haven't got there, what they'd like to see. And then you can work out, right, what do we know to solve that problem and how much would they pay? Or the same for internal processes, you could ask that internally. But I would recommend, in terms of a process, like you asked the question, find where there's pain in the market or pain within your organization, and then solve it based on what you know, instead of going, we know all these different things, let's productize them and push them out to the market, or productize them and make our staff go through them. Again, that doesn't work well. So start with the customer.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. So just had another question coming in here. So any tips and tricks for undertaking an effective customer interaction survey / discussion? to discover what you are genuinely doing well or poorly to understand the customer experience. How do we ensure all team members have the skills to extract and think about this important process? Oh, very good question. So I've got an idea. Anybody want to jump in there? Tips and tricks for undertaking effective customer interaction survey/discussion to discover what we're genuinely doing well or poorly.
I'm happy to let you or Grant answer that one.
Okay, but I'll jump in. Grant, you feel free. I think that one is good that you're asking the question. Two, I think that you could. It's interesting. Just a very simple the NPS score. So asking. So two questions. First of all, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And then but the goal is actually in the next question, what was the reason for your answer? And what I find is that you after doing that, you'll find some commonality. When I go into a business and I do a survey, it doesn't take long to see common themes approaching. So I think that NPS NPS survey is very, very helpful. And I think that it's actually, asking those questions and just having a serious chat with people about, well, how are we doing and what is your biggest pain point? And, and being able to do that. So Grant, anything else to add on that question?
Yes, look, going back to your presentation, Chris, look, the customer journey is really critically important, and you don't need to get too detailed and complex. You really want to make it simple for your customers to transact with you, whether it's a service or whether it's a product type business. But again, I would look for areas where there could be behavior emerging in other industries which hasn't yet been adopted by your industry. But for example, credit card payments have changed the way that we've shopped. Electronic transactions have reduced the use of cash. So are you making yourself available at the time that your customers are considering you? And what are the impediments to them doing business with you? So before you go to the expense or the effort of actually doing a customer survey, follow the customer journey that Chris spoke about earlier on. Try to understand, are you fulfilling the simple elements to actually complete a transaction? Are you available at the time of consideration? Are they able to easily transact with you? Is there friction in that customer journey that, if removed, would enhance the customer journey and also potentially lower costs for the business? And is it consistent in its delivery? So if you're a products-based business, if you don't have products on the shelf, you're out of business. If you're in the service-based business and you cannot secure the appointment, you cannot get commitment from people to pay, then you've got lost revenue. So there's some really simple basic things that you can do. And probably secondly is there's the Waikato University publishes a benchmarking report often annually. Advisory.Works has access to that, but you may be able to go online and see where your industry sits in the benchmark report. It will give you sales, it will give you margin, it will give you productivity measures. So these are important resources that you can either go to Waikato University, or we can help you with some of those resources if you like. Hopefully that was helpful.
Excellent. Thanks, Grant. And also all the questions I went through, that will be part of the homework. So you have those as well. You can play with that. But yeah, look at your customer journey and where those points of friction are. All right. So feel free, give us some more questions here. Love to answer them. Now, another question we have is, I guess we went through a lot of different tools there. Are there any other ways that you'd recommend us to improve our financial position?
Yep, I can talk to that if you like.
Thank you.
So just following on from the customer journey, a couple of things that I would encourage you to look at is if your business, if sales are not growing, or if you've got an overhead structure in your business, try to understand what your ideal customer mix is, because there will be some customers in your business, and hopefully a lot of them, that are your most profitable, repetitive customers, but you may be servicing a wider market than that target market audience, and it could be costing you substantially. And so if you could turn your mind and do a sample size of activity-based costing, that's matching the costing associated with doing the activity, you may have some really epiphanies around, we're actually getting all the sales. It might account for 20% of our turnover, but we're actually not making any money out of it. But there's a lot of resources tied up in actually servicing these clients. Many businesses find it difficult to actually shrink to go forward, but ultimately their business is in far more control, and they're able to actually utilize their resources a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Grant. So we're coming up on 1 o'clock. So are there any more? Last call for any more questions that we want us to tackle? It's been a good discussion here, and I really appreciate Grant and Greg, your insight's been fantastic. So thank you for that.